stream. Okay, so with this meeting, the intent behind it is going to be to explain the establishment of this Discord server. So this Discord server has existed for a while. The purpose of it is for cross-faction leadership communication, in addition to like coordination for server type events. So be that a GKP Pug or EQ40 opening or etc. But I'm going to explain kind of the roles in the Discord and what the purpose is. So in addition to that, we're going to talk about Scepter of the Sands before the gong gets banged and after the gong gets banged and the entire event, and how I expect it to play out, or how I envision it to play out rather. And some things that we can decide about the server and how we want to do things. Alright. So, the purpose of this Discord server, again, is coordination between both factions. So, Alliance, for example, they want to have rend heads for parsing. So, therefore, we need to have some way for them to be able to get it. Because if not, then we're going to have what we had before, which was just Alliance sneaking into this Discord and getting those buffs anyway. So rather than subterfuge and deceit, I'd rather just be open and understood when the timers are going out. And if somebody wants to sell ahead to someone, then people have the avenue to do that without it being some hidden thing. And I understand that some people may be against that because they feel like it's cross-faction collusion, but look, it's going to happen anyway. We can't stop it from happening, so it might as well be in the open. It also gives us a point of contact in case one of our members has an issue with another member, or etc. There's RP griefing, etc. These things can be handled through some kind of mutual Discord server. And I know these exist, but there isn't a Discord for this specific purpose, and that's what I'm trying to make this into. Also, if there are RP events, server RP events, this is a good avenue for people to advertise them. For Horde only, this is going to continue to be the place where we coordinate for raid escorts and buffs. Horde only can see those channels. Point of contact again for different guild leadership and cross guild recruitment. So let's say I have a member that previously was able to make my raids but now cannot. Then we have a channel for that, so I can refer. I can say this player is a great player but can no longer make my raid times. Is anybody looking for a holy priest, or etc. And maybe you guys can pick them up quickly instead of leaving them homeless for a few days. So the roles in the Discord are gonna be. The roles in the Discord are admin. That's gonna be like the Horde moderator role. It's basically me, UJ, and that's pretty much it. I think there's one other person who has it. The moderator is going to be an alliance-only role that gives the ability to grant leadership to alliance guilds. You can only see the cross-faction channels. I don't expect Alliance to ever have an alliance-only channel in this Discord, because then I would be able to see it. You guys have your own Discords for that, but this gives them at least the ability to see the leadership channel for between two factions. Horde leadership has the ability to see all Horde channels and all cross-faction channels. Alliance leadership can only see cross-faction channels, and if there's some non-leadership player that is somebody we can trust with world buff information, then we give them the trusted buffer role. They cannot see any leadership channel. Okay, so let's talk about Scarab Lords. So at a very minimum, you will need these materials to get a Scarab Lord title per quest chain, right? Or one set of these materials per quest chain. So you're talking, very, very basic stuff, right? You guys should all be aware of this. If you're not already, then now you are. Now, the significant item is going to be Broodlord's head, and it's going to matter because there's only one lootable per raid ID. So basically, the guy who loots it, that's your Scarab Lord. So something to note, and I'm going to hit on this later, if it's not master lootable, make sure nobody's looting the boss except for the guy who's supposed to be doing the quest. Okay, so like I was saying, don't loot. It might not. I played on private servers where it was not master lootable, and it was just looted by anybody who was on the quest line. Hey, Morta, I'm gonna mute you personally because you.
Yeah, you're good, dude.
All right. All right. So anyway, so make sure when you go and do this quest line, just something I've seen on private servers where people mess up and then the wrong person gets the head and etc. The same goes for the books on the bosses or various other quest items. Make sure the right person's looting these items, otherwise you could screw yourself over for your entire guild over for their Scarab Lord. And also, when you loot this, it allows you to start deputizing. So you're gonna do this quest line, and you get this item called Agent of Nas. The Agent of Nas can deputize players. You can deputize anybody as long as you turn in 200 fragments. You can turn in 200. So each of these fragments can be farmed in these hives that I've marked in green here, right? I know this is very basic for some of you, but I need to have a very basic explanation for the viewers at home and some people who are not familiar with Classic. So there are going to be 4 hives, okay? There's going to be mobs that spawn on the outside of the hive and within the inside of the hive. You could probably kill these things with a minimum. Some classes can do them solo, but I would say due to competition and PvP, I would recommend groups of at least 3, depending on the hour of day, increasing that number. You don't need a 40-man raid to farm these. But the only people who can loot the fragments are people who have been deputized, or your Scarab Lord target who has looted a Broodlord's head. So, the people who are going to be competing for these mobs are either going for Scarab Lord, or they're trying to get their tactical or combat badges, or they're doing the quest line in Silithus that makes you go into one of the hives. The combat badges are used for Bisque gear like Rock Fury Bracers, Earth Strike. These are items that your raiders are going to want. And it doesn't matter if your guild's going for Scarab Lord or not, you're going to be out there killing these bugs. So what that means is you probably want to include, if you see some ungrouped player who's trying to farm these bugs, you might as well try to include them and deputize them and try, for their help gathering fragments, you're going to help them kill the bugs they need for their quests. It requires approximately 42,000 silted fragments per Scarab Lord. It's going to be less if you are a human, but again, that's going to be very faction specific. But something to know is that is how big the grind is. You get, I think, like 1 to 4 fragments per kill, so it's going to be a significant grind and it's a hefty undertaking. So when you want to be farming these, though, it's going to depend on the time of day and the day of the week even. So but once you complete this these fragments, when you complete this grep grind, so basically you start at hated with Brood of Nas, right? And you're farming these fragments all the way up to neutral. Once you hit neutral, you can start the rest of the quest line. Now there are going to be these quest bosses out in the world. There's going to be like Dr. Weevil, and there's going to be a guy in Duskwood, and there's going to be some trash that you have to farm around where the Nightmare Dragons spawn, etc. If you can, my recommendation is to be synced up with another guild or another Scarab Lord to be working together. Because if the quest items are multiple, like you're able to loot multiple off of one kill, then you're removing the chance that somebody's going to bang the gong without you, because if you guys are all synced up, then it'll all work out. The other thing is, if you're working together, you have a good understanding of when they're going to bang the gong, right? So there's not going to be any ninja gong bangs in the middle of the night. So let's talk about the war effort. With this, you can obviously see that there's a hefty amount of raw materials required. We're talking 800,000 of any single item. It doesn't matter how obtainable it is. That's a lot of items, right? And yeah, it's a viable thing to farm, etc. But I don't think it's viable for any one guild on our server to farm all of these materials by themselves. And because of that, I think that we are probably safe unless somebody's been planning to turn all these things in since early phases. I think we'll be okay in terms of this event not being finished by a single guild. However, some people have made it known that they want to get the gate open as fast as possible, so they may have very well done that. I just want it to be understood that these are the raw materials that everyone has to farm for the server. Okay, so now when we're talking about when the gate can be open, there is a minimum. Let's assume that based on the previous content releases, that the server gets the patch at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. Okay, that's kind of consistent with what other content has come out so far. If it comes out on a Wednesday at 3 p.m., the minimum time it would take for anybody to ring the gong is server reset for BWL plus the amount of time for them to clear BWL. Okay, and here's why I say that. So, for you to get Broodlord's head, you have to do BWL, right? Broodlord is after Veil. And that means that if I'm going to start my Red Shard quest chain, which is part of the quest line, I know I'm not really getting into the quest line itself, but there's a quest that you have to talk to Veil to start that you kill Nefarian. If you've already killed Veil, you can't talk to him, right? So that means that at a minimum, it takes 2 BWL lockouts. That is the hard requirement. That is the only thing that's going to stop you from getting your Scarab Lord, okay? Is getting that second BWL lockout within the first 10 hours that the gong has been banged. Everything else, you have enough time, potentially, to knock it all out within a single week. So, this is the absolute minimum. It'll be, 8 a.m. West Coast time, 8 a.m. at West Coast time on Tuesday is the earliest you could get screwed out of, the earliest that the gong can be rang, and then you have a 10-hour window to turn in your quest after that. Okay? So, in addition to the lockout situation, all of these items, the war effort turn-ins, all have to be turned in, and then the NPCs take 5 days to move the raw supplies down to AK-40. Once that happens, the gong can be rang. Before that, it cannot be rung. So, we have a couple things. So I opened up a channel that everybody should be able to see if they're part of this Discord server. At the top, it's called AQ Tracking. Now, there's 2 documents in there, okay? One is going to be the tracking sheet, which I'm going to pull up on stream real quick. Okay. So, there's 2 purposes of this one. It tells you we want to keep track of it, of where both factions are with raw material turn-ins, and we can just say, whatever has been turned in, and then also if any guild wants to declare what they have stockpiled for this event, they can do it here. And this is kind of pushing towards an idea that we can all agree on a time to bang the gong. Does that make sense? Because with these 2 things in mind, the release schedule, the lockouts, and the 5-day NPC transport, we can effectively decide when we want the gong to be banged. And I'll explain how in just a moment, but I want to explain this document quickly. Okay, so there's 3 tabs of this, right? There's a form. The other link in that channel is the intent to run for Scarab Lord, okay? So basically, click that link, you tell me who your target is, who your player is, and then we edit this slide, or this tab, and we put your name in, your guild, your faction, and we tell people where you're at on the quest line. Now, I know some guilds want to keep it hidden. That's fine. My guild will be posting everything openly. Why? Because we want people to know where we're at. Because if you know you're behind because we're ahead of you, you got to catch up. Then maybe that motivates your players to work harder or whatever to get your farm going. But the main intent is so everybody's aware of where everybody's at, so there's no mystery whenever the gong gets rang. Everybody's aware. Everybody knows about it. Transparency and communication are key to making this something that we can all consider. We can all consider this a fair way to open the gates. It gives everybody an opportunity to get their Scarab Lord in order, get everything in line, and I know that it may seem far-fetched, but I think it's doable on this server based on the networks and communities that kind of already talk to each other. I don't think it's far-fetched for us to kind of work together on this. Seeing as it's a once in a lifetime event that we probably are not going to get another chance at. So, all right. So let's keep going. Okay, so again, the Scarab Lord intent form, you just fill it out. It's simple. It just says your guild name, player name that you want to have Scarab Lord from your guild, and what faction you're on. And we put it in. To get edit rights to that document, you just DM me an email, and I'll give you edit rights to it, and you'll be able to add in that information and keep track of it yourselves. It doesn't have to be an officer or guild leader. It can be anybody who is a representative from your guild. I recommend it being your actual Scarab Lord target, just so that they know that document exists and they're responsible for it. You're not running a middleman there. Okay, so there's two real paths we can take, right? So if we want to take a path, there's two extreme paths. We can take a path of trying to achieve the maximum number of Scarab Lords possible. Oh, yeah, by the way, make sure that the email you give me is not tied to your real name for that document. Anyway, so there's two paths we can take, right? One path is maximum Scarab Lords. That means that we boycott the war effort turn-ins. That means we don't really all just hold off. We just gather all the materials we need, but don't turn anything in. We cooperatively run BWL Multicore split or pug groups to ensure that everybody gets the quest items they need. We include as many non-competing players as possible in high farming so that they can assist somebody in getting a Scarab Lord title. We cooperatively complete quest objectives among your own faction and openly communicate intent and current status of your quest line. That is if you want to get every guild on the server a Scarab Lord, this is how you do it. Now, there's another path, which some people want too. It's opening AK-40 as soon as possible. You amass all the raw materials and turn in upon patch release. Clear BWL as soon as patch goes live, and again as soon as the first server reset occurs. Control hives until your rep is completed, and play outside of peak hours for quests to avoid griefing. In addition to opening AK-40 as soon as possible, this obviously has the benefit of keeping your players entertained with new content. I'm sure they don't want to sit, if we hit month 2 and AK-40 is still not open and every other server has AK-40 open, I'm sure our players are going to be pissed off. So there's going to be a middle ground between these two extremes. But it's up to us as leaders of our guilds to decide where we want our server to be. Now, with that being said, I'm basically done with this presentation. Does anybody have any comments they want to talk about or any particular topic?
No, I mean, me personally, I think that getting as many Scarab Lords is definitely the way to go. No matter what the beef is between guilds or whatnot. Because like you said, this is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. Who knows if they're going to keep the gates closed in Burning Crusade servers and you can redo it then. It's unknown. But the more that you can get, the better. And the better it says about our server community. But at the same time, there is that chance of people transferring from their servers that have already done it to the servers that haven't opened it, probably. And bringing the...
That shouldn't be possible since they closed transfers to our server.
Yeah, I think our server population is too high for anybody to transfer to it. I think off it's really the only direction people can go.
I think that they intentionally lock the server until after AK-40 is open because they don't want somebody transferring to a server and banging gone.
The other thing too is if you participated or watched the stress test from Thursday, it was a shit show. So that isn't even to mention the fact that the event itself is probably going to be layered if I were to bet money. like again, I watched this. I watched someone streaming the stress test, and it was 0 frames per second for everybody, just spam disconnecting.
It's either going to be layered or their servers are going to be on fire.
Yeah, it was completely unplayable.
I think
So-
something good to talk about would be if we want to decide on a time limit that we set ourselves. So we can both have the quote-unquote maximum Scarab Lords, and we can have the AQ content open for the players as soon as possible for them. So
Right.
maybe we could think of a reasonable time frame to do it all in.
Well, okay, so the only problem with that concept is if we assume that let's say the window is, we say we have 3 weeks to bang gong. Firstly, we don't know the time frame at which people are going to be able to turn in all the materials. Secondly, there could be a rogue agent there and then just bang gong, and all the people that were expecting it to take a certain amount of time get screwed. So it's fine if we say we will be working towards, let's say we will be working towards the event at this time with no intent to slow down at a certain point in time. I think that makes sense, but to say that the gate will be open by a certain point is not correct.
I have a
Well, it would
concern.
be more like if we all gathered everything, we wouldn't, hold on to it past a certain time.
Right, that's what I'm
Like
saying.
if everybody has everything ready, yeah. I agree with
Yeah,
that.
the potential failure there is someone just does it anyway.
But we would know ahead of time.
I mean, everyone's gonna try to get everything as fast as possible. I don't think anyone would, it's not reasonable to wait. Based off of a quote-unquote timeline.
So I think a solid point of view to think about too is, even though people may be getting kind of bored running Molten Core and Blackwing Lair, you're gonna run AQ40 for the rest of Classic, and it's gonna be at least another 6 months to a year. You're gonna get bored of AQ40. I think it's important that I personally have the opinion that it's important that we try to get as many Scarab Lords as possible, because this content's not going to be something we stop running anytime soon. So, getting it open a week early, cool, but, I mean, we're going to be running it for months.
Kurthos, I don't mean to break the third wall here, but your stream's complaining it's too quiet.
Yeah, I'm gonna increase volume for you guys.
What about
So-
the lack of WOTOP and Titans of War in here?
Well,
They're
is planning on
they're
doing
welcome.
one east. They didn't have a person available to come today, but they are planning to do one at least, and are in coordination with some other people.
Are they
Didn't,
planning to cooperate with us, or are they planning to do it themselves?
From what it seems, they're planning to cooperate, but I cannot give you a 100% on that, although I can't give a 100% for anyone in here other than my.
Right.
In general, I'd say their attitude has appeared quite agreeable as of late.
Okay, cool.
With Tau, I mean, unless Tau has farmed all of these raw materials that are required themselves, I don't think it's really
They're
a
claiming
major.
to have.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine if that's what they want to do, or if that's what they've done. We can plan. I mean, okay, so the best way to put it or think about this event is you have to plan for the worst and hope for the best, right? That's it. So plan for the absolute worst. Plan for it being open on that 8th day, right? On that 7th day, whatever. Be ready on that second Tuesday to bang gong. If you're not, it's only you. You can only blame yourself. I'm not trying to hold. Let me make it understood. I'm not trying to slow things down for people to catch up. I'm saying to you guys, how do we get there? How do we get as many Scarabs as possible? We collectively as guild leaders decide to delay gate opening by not turning in materials. We gather materials, we hold materials, and by whatever date agreed upon, we turn them in. But there's no such idea that anybody's gonna slow down their farm. You know what I mean? But I'm saying I don't expect a single guild to farm 800,000 linen bandages. I don't expect a single guild to farm. And even if they did, let's say Tau or whoever decides to farm everything themselves for Alliance and the combined effort, but do they have the infrastructure and capability to farm 250 Mage Weave bandages for Horde?
No.
Right.
Not even close.
So we can hold, as if we agree to work together and we come to a consensus, we can make it happen. You don't have...
So on that note of working together, what about when we're collecting the Scarab Husk? Is everyone in here not allowed to attack anyone else that's in this coalition?
No. Not at all. This isn't a coalition. This Discord is supposed to be a place where we can communicate. If you have PvP, you PvP. That's not what this is about.
Okay.
I have a question about the farming.
Okay.
So when a guild finishes their Scarab Husks farming, are we going to agree to then move on and help the next guild do it? Because I think that would be a really good idea in getting it done faster and helping everyone actually get their Scarab Lord that wants to get it. It wouldn't be like mandatory, but maybe encouraged.
I mean, that's going to be the Scarab Husk farming is literally the hardest part of the entire chain. Like, we can easily get people together to kill the world bosses, to kill Iranicus, to kill Moz, but literally the entirety of this quest chain is just the second BWL clear and the Scarab Husk farming. The rest of it's probably doable in a day.
That's going to be a guild by guild basis. If you have a good alliance with another guild, they might be happy to help, but a lot of it's going to take majority. For smaller guilds at least, it's going to take majority people to farm just one person's Scarab Lord from that guild.
Yeah, and I will say for
at
least, for some large guilds like mine, I won't be having more than one. So as soon as we're done, it's done. That's it. We're not polluting the pool any further.
Yeah, you have to... So somebody did math, and it's not really correct math. Somebody said something like you can get 9 in a week. Is like if you kill every mob on respawn timer instantly or whatever. That math isn't actually accurate, but I think it's somewhere more close to like 14 if you did that or something like that. But that being said, with if I take every guild tag that's in this channel and we dilute this, I know everybody's guild isn't the same size, but if we dilute it, and we're killing every bug on cooldown and we're on respawn timer, not a single person is going to get this done in a single week. We're assuming 24/7's farming for 1 week. Not a single guild would get it done. It would be too diluted. The pool would be too diluted for a single guild. Some guild might get 75% of the way there, but just looking at, unless if we assume that there's not going to be layers, because if we have to assume for the worst, right? Then it won't be a viable thing. But again, we know that not everybody's going to play 24/7. Not everybody's going to have 60 people out there during non-peak hours, etc. It's not realistic that more than 4 or 5 people get it done within week 1, in my opinion. Now that's where the other things come in: the war effort, boycott, etc.
That's also assuming no layers, right?
Right, yeah. If there's layers, then things get exponentially easier for smaller guilds. But also smaller guilds if smaller guilds, let's say, you're a 1 raid team guild and you really want to get a Scarab Lord, the way to do it is you're playing off peak hours, you're playing like later in the week, like you're telling your people like help you farm early in the week, but later in the week is when you really want to get most of your farming in, because most of the hardcores are probably going to be done by day 3 of patch. So that gives you the last half of the patch or the last half of the week to probably knock things out. And also consider that as many griefers and PvPers are going to be out there, when they're done, like when somebody's target is done, they're not going to be out there in the hives. Like a few people will be, but it won't be like when their target's out there farming.
You're also going to have people that are farming them with the intent to sell the parts as well.
Right.
Well, you can only loot the parts if you've gotten the head.
You only need one guy.
Well, no, if you can only loot them if you've been deputized or have the head.
Yeah, there are guilds that have already made it known that they're going out there to sell parts, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna have to strategically deputize people. I would only do it on people you trust and know.
All right,
Right.
I have a question then, because I've seen mention of it.
With the intent to flood the competition and, you know, make more people that have been deputized, and they can all start selling, right?
You have to willingly give them deputize them. You have to willingly do it.
But if there's a guild that says we're not going to go for Scarab Lord at all, and they give a head out, right? That guy can start deputizing people willingly that intend.
Right. Sure.
I don't think that that's the concern. The biggest concern there is 100% the fact that I've seen individuals talking about running GDKP BWL runs to specifically target giving the head out. So we can't stop that though.
No alliance side.
Unless it's someone in your guild that you know of that is going to be doing it, and then that's a conversation that we should have then at that point.
I think that'll be such a minuscule portion of this whole machine, in honesty, that it won't like. You need 42,000 fragments to get it. There's no way anyone's gonna sell. Like, that won't even be on the auction house ever. Like, there will be significantly less than that, because all the people actually farming for it, I assume, will be out there in bigger numbers.
My question is this group of people who are here right now, are we going to do anything as far as if there is another spoiler present, like if one guild with multiple raid teams decides to lock down all the hives, are we as a group going to break that up?
Okay, so I can tell you as a current, there's not a single guild on Alliance or Horde, that can lock down all 4 hives. There's no way. Not a single guild. Maybe a group of guilds, maybe a coalition can, but there's no way that a single guild will do it. Not for 24/7. Not for 8 days. It's impossible. They just fucking can't. Can they move? Can they move and catch you? Like if you're at one hive, let's say you're at Hive Zora and you move to Hive Regal after they kill you, can they chase you down? Sure, but they're not going to be at all 4 hives. There's just going to be, firstly, there's going to be too much competition out there. Secondly, the player density of these areas is going to be so high that if they want to fuck with people, they can, absolutely. But they're not going to be able to target individually and like come after you. And even if they do, let them. If they kill you, if they're camping your Scarab Lord target, let them. Your Scarab Lord target can sit in Cenarian Hold, and your guys can be deputized and farming fragments in groups of 2s and 3s, fighting for tags, bringing you fragments to turn in. Like, it doesn't matter. And that's only going to be kind of a meta during peak hours. It's not going to be a significant portion of how this grind goes.
I have a question kind of regarding once you finish collecting the pieces, I'm assuming the ultimate end goal is going to be to have a time where the gong gets rung, because my concern is, like, what if guilds are going to be doing BWL on that second reset, like on reset to finish things up? And then, because my guild's kind of they don't, I don't think we can amass the people to really go on reset. But I guess the goal would be setting a singular time to ring the gong, and then everyone else can kind of follow up based on how they're. Because my concern is, like, one guild does it on reset. Yeah, my concern is one guild clears BWL basically on reset, and then the average guild, or not the average guild, but someone who has a Scarab Lord candidate that raids at like 6 server time, their window's shut. So I'm just curious if there's going to be like a if we're shooting for a designated time to ring the gong, or if there's like if that's a concern at all to anybody else.
You should assume it'll be
move around everyone's raid schedule.
Well, yeah, you should move your raid schedule completely.
That Tuesday, you have to assume you need to be done by the time that 10-hour mark is there, if not earlier. So your whole raid changes their whole schedule that day because there's nothing you can do, and you have to assume it's happening immediately because there's nothing you can do about it.
And you should also expect to be griefed trying to actually hit the gong when you're done.
I mean,
and
Oh,
get
sure.
into raid.
Well,
For
I mean,
sure.
so
These times change, right? If we don't turn in the resources as well.
Correct.
I mean, that it's
Yeah.
gonna get pushed back more.
It's
So
gonna
you'll
happen.
know when you
Yeah,
need
I
to
was. Yeah.
everything has to be played by ear, right? Like everything. That's what that tracker's for. If we see that there are 10 people with all materials turned in, they've completed a quest line, we can expect that gong to be rang, and you have to have a red phone next to you, your bed, and be ready to answer at any time of day because they're gonna say the gong has been rang. Wake up! It's time to go. You know, I mean, I know you guys all. You know, a lot of you guys probably work full time, and your targets probably work full time, etc. But those first 2 weeks, I would argue, those first 2 weeks after the patch goes live, you need to have those weeks off, at a minimum. That would be my recommendation. As far as raw materials and stuff, like, yeah, it's all going to shift around, and you have to expect the worst. You have to expect the worst, period, like, as far as this stuff goes. There's going to be bad actors always. There's going to be griefers, etc. But I think the main points of, I'm not even gonna say that actually, but I'll say later when I kill stream. But anyway, just remind me if we're leaving and I didn't say anything. But anyway, I'm just saying, like, all 4 hives, that's gonna be the majority of where you spend this quest line. But the places you want to be spending the most, like, you want to be cooperating with people, is not gonna be the hives. It's gonna be the quest bosses. That's where you want to be grouping up with other Scarab Lord targets and working together. Majority of your individual rank and file players should be farming Scarab Lord carapaces, but you should be on 24/7 doing bosses with other guilds, because that makes the most sense.
Do we have any idea of the respawn time of the bosses? Like, say, Dr. Weevil?
It's like 15 minutes.
Okay. What about the guy in Duskwood? Is that, like, the same?
We don't know for I don't know for sure what the respawn timer of those individual bosses will be, outside of what I've seen from private servers. But yeah, like expect a shorter respawn timer. The other significant grind that there is going to be the trash around the green dragons. It has a really, really small drop rate on the shards. It's kind of garbage, but and that takes 10 people to kill that stuff. I mean, the quest line, if you go, as much as I don't really like to use Wowhead for guides for Classic, they actually have a really good Scarab Lord guide that explains, like, how many people you need for each portion of the quest and stuff like that.
If we're taking the worst case scenario as far as layering goes, will we have a system in place so that the server doesn't crash, so that certain guilds can farm certain spots, like we designate certain guilds?
I don't know how it would be possible to do that.
Yeah.
Like, coordinate that with, especially
that
with
sounds
the
like a lot
Alliance.
The purpose of this is that you guys remain autonomous. Like, you keep your keep your sovereignty. Nobody's telling you how to do things, and that this is supposed to be a tool for your guild to be successful. This Discord, the tracker, these relationships, these networks. It's supposed to be something for you to use to get to where you want to be. So if that's Scarab Lord, whatever, if that's griefing people, that's, whatever that means, I can't stop you. But the intent is, firstly, Grobbulus is a unique kind of place. I don't think you can have this kind of conversation on Fairlena or Fairbanks or, other Whitemane. I think that we're very unique when it comes to that, and I think that if we wanted to, and this has kind of always been my kind of idea, like, goal for Classic for Grobbulus, is to have the most Scarab Lords of any server. If I go and I look historically on what happened in retail vanilla, the most Scarab Lords for one server I saw that was recorded was 3, and
Area 52.
There were 2. Well, I don't know what happened, like, post vanilla, but but the most on a single server for vanilla was 3. And I don't remember the server. You can go see it on WoWWiki. But I think we can do better than that. So it's up to you guys how we want to achieve this. Obviously, I put this meeting together, but I'm not trying to run anything here. Again, it's just supposed to be something that you guys can use to communicate and work together on.
Is there gonna, or maybe we could make this if it doesn't exist, because I did join a bit late. Some kind of like Google Doc where we can all have editing privileges, just so that we can input what we've contributed or can contribute for the war effort.
That exists, yeah. It's
okay, so I missed that.
Yeah, it's in the AQ tracking channel.
So I guess the question I have for everybody, for anybody who's played a private server that's actually done this, because I honestly don't remember from like Retail Classic. Like, I started playing around the time this was happening, so I didn't pay too much attention to it. Do you think it's actually viable? Because with a 5-day cooldown on moving the materials down there, that means with a patch launch on Wednesday, every single one of the war effort materials would have to be turned in by the end of the next day for it to be a Tuesday AQ opening.
Right.
I feel like you will be astounded at how many get handed in.
That's fucking absurd. Like, that's an absolute insane amount of materials to turn in 2 days. Like, just the linen bandages alone are more things than you could hold on 10 characters with full banks full of linen
Right,
bandages.
exactly. And that's kind of the point I was trying to make, is like, as many people want to say they're going to grief it and solo turn it in, I don't think that's realistic unless they're like super multi-boxers, you know? Like, they've got like bank alts and bank alts and bank alts full of linen bandages ready to turn in, because you couldn't take 1 week of this server's linen supply. You can go look it up on Undermine. You couldn't take this server's 1 week of linen supply and have enough linen if you bought everything out on both factions. You know, like it's not realistic for a single guild to do that. And let's say they did. Okay, if they want to bankrupt, if a guild wants to bankrupt themselves on this opening event, that's on them. You know, that's their legacy. You can't stop them from doing it. But man, that's a decision. That's an all-in decision if I ever saw one.
Yeah, and they would have been working for that for months, I would assume, based on the number of materials that they have to farm here.
People have been.
Oh yeah,
there are definitely certain people that have hoarded. And that is 100%. I know someone who has alone like 8,000 fire bloom.
I was gonna say, yeah, he's got all of the fire bloom.
Well, that's great. That's fire bloom, right? But doesn't answer the sheer raw materials needed.
Too many things for across all of it. It's too many things for one guild to do. Is correct. 800,000 linen bandages is nuts. And on top of that, 600,000 more silk.
Like, what's the crafting time on linen bandage?
Basically,
it's pretty fast.
If you don't want it to open, don't hand stuff in.
And that's kind of a point here, is that we have about 4 dozen guilds represented in this chat right now. If we want to go the boycott route, which it seems like a lot of us do, we're in that scope to do so. I mean, we got so many guilds here right now. If we all come to that agreement, then the concern about, you know, that first week Tuesday, well, I raid at 6 p.m., I'm going to get screwed. Well, if we all come to the agreement of, well, just let's boycott, there's so many people here that we have that power, and it would be beneficial for all of us.
But I also guess that goes a little bit back to what we were talking about earlier. Would there be a maximum time we would want to set aside to be like, okay, this is the maximum anyone's going to have to do?
But it's not... Firstly, it's not something we should establish here, because if we do, let's say we say right now it's 3 weeks, and then so many variables scuff that, and somebody walks away from this meeting expecting it to be 3 weeks, and then they get pissed off because we said it was 3 weeks of this meeting. It's not realistic. We have to give updates on like a daily basis on where everybody's at, where we want to be, and the general consensus of your guilds, and etc. Obviously, in my opinion, you guys go back to your guilds, figure out what they want to do, and then bring it forward. I don't want to put a vote up or anything because it can be skewed or it can be manipulated. So, like, for example, let's say my guild wanted to open AQ40 gates as soon as possible, but I tell you that I want to delay as long as possible. I can absolutely do that and then be a scum lord and do turn it in the middle of the night or whatever on Tuesday, and but I voted one way. I mean, we could. I don't know how useful vote is going to be on that, but I think the general consensus is the delay, and if we just go off of the tracker and keep that up to date and understood of where things are at, we can move off of that and we can say, okay, it looks like we're looking at let's say we're into week 2, and we see that only 25% of all materials require to be turned in before the NPCs start moving. So we can say, based on the turn-in rates of the last couple days, we can expect it to be 5 days plus this. And we can say, okay, expect a gong to be rung on week 3, day 4, or something like that. Does it make sense? That's how it should be done if you want to keep as many people in the loop as possible and stay as transparent as possible and have an effective release date understood by everybody. If you don't do that, if you don't use the tracker, if you just kind of put an arbitrary date out there, not enough's going to get done.
I have another question that you guys may or may not know. If you get deputized and the person who deputized you finishes their grind, do you still have the ability to farm silithids, or do you need to be re-deputized?
No, you still have the ability.
Okay, so we could be deputized. So we can, if we do want to go the route where we want to work together, where my guild finishes the person that they're putting forth for a Scarab Lord, we have some people who enjoy farming and want to help other guilds. We can have those deputies just sort of post looking for group willing to turn in scarabs for you or whatever. Or do you need to be deputized by that person?
You have to be deputized by a lord, and then they farm it and bring it to your guy. Yeah.
So yes, people can help you. Groups can work together.
I have one more question just regarding the patch. You said the patch is expected to drop on a Wednesday. Does that mean Broodlord Head will be lootable on a Wednesday, or it'll be lootable at server reset that Tuesday, and then the quests will be available on the Wednesday?
How could we possibly know?
We don't know, but I'd assume that if it's based on every other content release since Dire Maul, actually I think Dire Maul was on a Thursday, but if we assume BWL and ZG, it'll come due on a Wednesday. Everything will be available on a Wednesday. But if for some reason we kill Broodlord and Broodlord's Head's not lootable, and then they do something like they did with us with ZG and World Dragons, where they World Dragons spawned the next day or something, then we would have just screwed the entirety of the server out of their Broodlord Heads if we try to go in there on Wednesday. So it's risk that has to be taken, right? Because if you don't go in there on that Wednesday and raid, then you're screwed, right? You're screwing yourself up. It's like a catch. Anyway.
Well, I was just curious because my guild raids on the reset Tuesday. So if they were planning to release the patch the next day, my lockout's fucked.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So you have to move your raid schedule to base around this one-time event. You have to move your raid schedule. You can't assume. You have to work with what Blizzard's gonna do. You can't assume that it's gonna be normal. You have to tell people that too.
I was wondering.
If it's something that you want and your guild wants, then nothing else can matter.
Right.
Yep, I got you.
My guild's not even gonna, unless my guild is not gonna pursue World Dragons. My guild is not gonna even clear the first lockout. We're not even gonna clear BWL. We're just gonna go and kill Broodlord and leave. We're not, everything is off the table. ZGs, no ZGs, don't care. There's not anything else that matters during this event.
You actually need to save Molten Core for one of the farming things.
And 2 of them. Need the book and Ragnaros.
Yep. Oh, I think they're both for the same phase. You need the trash drop that gives you a page, and then you need a Ragnaros for a different page.
But yeah, I mean, I'll be doing the same thing as Kurthos, just no one's doing anything but focusing on this.
If you're expecting the worst, then you need to do BWL on Wednesday, get the head, do the grind, finish the quest, and then save Molten Core from...
Yeah, I would say that's another thing is your guild, your Scarab Lord, and your guild need to understand this quest line inside and out in exactly every intricate detail. And you can use this Discord to ask people questions. You can use infinite number of resources have been out for the last 15, 16 years on the content, but you need to know it. You don't want the patch to release and then you're asking what to do next. You need to know everything that's going to go on here.
Speaking of resources, does anybody know if the gong ringing is instant or is it a cast bar?
It's just a quest turn in.
This is a quest, yeah.
You talk to
Oh,
the
you
gong
don't actually
basically.
like click a gong?
You
do
click
click
it
the
and it just completes.
It
So
gives
like-
you the option to complete the quest.
It's like one of those objects that's an NPC that you turn a quest into.
Yeah, so there's no way to stop somebody from turning it in.
Oh, that's actually better because if it was a cast time, that would suck.
Now, other
Right.
involved and
No, you'll be okay. If you're talking about getting griefed at the gate, I mean, like, if you tell us that you're getting griefed and you have Scarab to, you know, you have a, like, that's something that we can all cooperate with, right? We could probably get, you know, 80, 90 horde out there on the gong to get you to turn, you know, or vice versa. You know, that's something that we can use this Discord for. All right. So, as far as that tracking sheet goes, like I said, get me your emails. Make sure it's not tied to any real life name or anything if you don't want that information out there. I think we're kind of coming to a close at this point, unless anybody else has anything they want to bring up. But thanks everybody for coming. I'm really excited with the turnout. I think we can accomplish a lot of good stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and start killing the stream off. We're gonna raid somebody though, I guess. And
Thanks for hosting this.
Oh yeah, of course. And you know, like, anything we can do to make the server better, let's do it. Cause like I don't want to go anywhere else. I love it here. You know, for the most part. Anything we can do to make the server better, let's do it.
I agree 100%. So do you think that the war effort will be finished immediately?
I think that's what